Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics. Out here at the range working on some content for you guys, and I thought I'd kind of change things up a little bit, take a minute, sit down and talk about a really important topic, the Second Amendment. Now, before I get into this, my opinion, you may agree with it, you may not agree with it, and ultimately it's kind of irrelevant to the fact of what we're talking about. But I wanted to put it out there from the perspective of me and the perspective of a trainer. The Second Amendment recognizes a natural right. That's what it does. It's a constitutional recognition of a natural right. Self-defense is a natural right. The Second Amendment gives us the ability to defend ourselves and our loved ones and our communities from whatever. It doesn't specify. There is no scope. It doesn't say you may only defend yourself from private parties, and it doesn't say you may only defend yourself from the government. It is left open, wide open, on purpose. But it does give us the right to defend ourselves. Government regulation through bureaucracy and arbitration has come in to basically say, well, let's target the firearms. Let's go after what people can have, which I totally don't agree with. Obviously, plenty of people have had this conversation. This debate has been had and will continue to be had because they're always going after either cosmetic features, length, or magazine capacity. Is 30 rounds better than 15 rounds? I'd say so. I would like 40 rounds, but I can't get 40 rounds into a 30-round magazine, so I gotta seek out my options. Magazine capacity is standard. 30 rounds is standard for the AR-15. 15, 16, 17 in your handguns, depending on the size. They're arbitrary numbers, but they want to reduce the amount of ammunition we have available to us based on some kind of social feeling versus factual evidence that reducing magazine capacity is somehow going to reduce crime. We all know criminals don't follow the law. That's it's in the name, criminals. They're, by definition, a criminal is breaking the law in some way, no matter what the law is. The laws turn honest gun owners into criminals. Now, I'm a military veteran. I spent time in the military. I was in the Army. I did 7 years. Then I was a private security contractor, and I am current law enforcement. Now, when I have this conversation, I'm not speaking from the position of a law enforcement officer. I'm not speaking from the position of a veteran. I'm not speaking from the position of a former security contractor. I'm speaking as a citizen. I'm speaking to citizens. No matter your background, whether you're a veteran or you're law enforcement or you're ex-law enforcement, retired law enforcement, former contractor, carpet layer, bricklayer, nurse, doctor, lawyer, what have you, you're all citizens first. Only caveat to that is active duty military are recognized as military. If you're law enforcement, you're a citizen. Coming from law enforcement to law enforcement, I'm telling you that you can't call people civilians because you are one too. Your number one job as a law enforcement officer is to defend the rights of the people. Since we're talking about the Second Amendment, how are you doing that as a law enforcement officer? How are you defending people's rights? Now, I understand you'll find yourself in a situation where it's policy versus politics. And I know from personal experience that there are laws out there that we don't agree with that we sometimes have to enforce. However, everybody's familiar with officer discretion. I'm not calling for any law enforcement officers to not do their job, but I am asking law enforcement officers and citizens both to understand this conversation, that your primary obligation is to the people. It's not to the badge. It's not to your department. It's not to your chief. You are an officer of the Constitution. You are responsible for defending the rights of the people in the Second Amendment. So, in keeping with that thinking, and that's how I approach things as a trainer and as a law enforcement officer, what does the Second Amendment mean? Well, it has nothing to do with hunting or sporting purpose. Get that out of the way right now. I've already talked about it's about self-defense. That's what the Second Amendment is for. Be it self-defense from someone breaking into my home or self-defense from a usurpacious government. Self-defense, self-defense. I can defend my family. I can defend anyone I choose to, so long as that use of force is within the Constitution, keeping within the Constitution. Now, how does training factor into the Second Amendment? The Second Amendment does not say you will be trained to X standard, which I totally agree with. I think no government organization, even if we had a nationwide CCW, which I would like to see, however, if it comes with training attached, I have a problem with that, because that allows the government to dictate to what level you will be trained. I don't agree with that because those rules are usually written by people who have no idea what they're talking about. Everything looks good from the right side of the desk. Everything isn't realistic from the other side of the desk. So Training is a moral and ethical responsibility. You have a moral and ethical responsibility to be as efficient with your firearm as you possibly can, based on what you expect to encounter, based on the situations you put yourself in or the situations you may find yourself in. Your moral responsibility to your fellow citizens is to train and to practice that which you are trained in. It's not going to the range and shooting bullseyes for 10 minutes. It's actually taking self-defense focused training if you're going to carry a weapon in the general public for self-defense. Firearms are one of those things where you can go out and you can pick up a gun and you can shoot and you can look at how you're shooting and be like, you know what, I'm pretty good at this. I'm able to aim and I'm able to hit a target at whatever distance. I can't go into an OR and pick up a scalpel and get to working on somebody and after a while get pretty good at it and then someone calls me a doctor. It doesn't work that way. I can't go into a courtroom and argue a few cases and then suddenly be a lawyer. Now, I'm not trying to compare shooting to those two occupations, but it does kind of give you a comparison in when it factors in skill. Anybody can go out and get a gun, go out and shoot it, and then by their own level of judgment say, I'm good at this. They don't like it when someone else says, you know what, this is the level you should train to, because then we get into where's the line, what level of training should you have. I don't agree with that. I provide training services that are completely voluntary. You come to my classes or you don't. I would like everyone to come to my classes, but I know it's not realistic. Some people just aren't going to spend the money on training. And I'm not going to give it away for free to an extent. I do offer free classes occasionally, but obviously I can't stay in business if that's all I ever do. I'll put out all the free advice I can through articles and videos, but when it comes to actually being on the range for 8 or 9 hours, it's worth for worth. You're going to give me your time, and I'm going to give you my time. That is a fair exchange. I'm going to give you as many skills as I can that you can take home and practice to proficiency, but it's incumbent upon you to train. Obviously, the Second Amendment is constantly under attack, and it's something we have to defend. Some of the best ways to defend the Second Amendment is by being a more responsible gun owner. I'm not calling anybody irresponsible. However, and I'm not going to point to specific cases, but there have been people who have taken it upon themselves to draw attention to themselves only for the sake of drawing attention to themselves. Your gun is not a selfie accessory. If you're at the range and you want to snap a cool pic, awesome. If you're in Target or Chipotle or Starbucks and you just went there to say I went there and here's my gun, that's not really responsible behavior. I'm not even going to get into the open carry thing because that's not the topic of this video. A responsible gun owner treats the firearm with the respect it deserves. It is not a selfie accessory. So in closing, just looking at the Second Amendment from my perspective, and I think I covered a lot of bases here, and I definitely touched on a lot of topics. So if it's run a little long or whatever, this is just flowing out. I didn't script this, I just wanted to talk about it. We have a moral and ethical responsibility, as I've already said, to train. And after you receive training, practice. Because you don't know what you don't know. There's only so much you can teach yourself. I'm saying go out and get professional instruction because I believe that there's a lot of great instructors out there who can teach you things that you can't learn by yourself. They can bring to the table experiences and techniques that you're not going to be able to get from a video or a magazine. Videos, magazines, articles, DVDs, those are all practice supplements. They're not training replacements. If we want to continue to defend our Second Amendment, if we want to represent the Second Amendment in the best way, we have to be more responsible. And I'm not saying that we're irresponsible as a whole, because we're not. There's a lot of really great shooters out there, really responsible gun owners. Every class I see, I don't have any problems with the people who attend. They're all responsible gun owners who are there to learn. But we all know that there's some folks out there that do some things that maybe they shouldn't, and it's not necessarily a failure on their part, it's a failure on our part as a Second Amendment community by not addressing those people and being like, hey man, can we talk about this before you make this decision? Have you really thought this through? Is this the best way to represent your position? Now, they may completely disagree with you and go off and do whatever it is they're going to do to begin with, but at least you tried to help them see how there is a better way to represent our community, because we are a tight-knit community. We're going to argue about a lot of stuff. a lot of stuff, from belts to magazines to caliber. We're going to continue to argue about it. We're going to argue techniques. We're going to argue optics. We're going to argue this expense versus that expense, this gun, stipple, no stipple. We're going to argue all these things. But the one thing that we always have to stand solid on is what the Second Amendment means and how best to protect it. Because let's be honest, it's the only right that's constantly under attack. So, and I know just me, I'm not going to be the rally call here. I'd like to be, but I'm not. But I would like to see from those people who actually take the time to watch my videos is a more thoughtful conversation, and think about your neighbors, think about your friends, think about your loved ones, and how you can best represent the Second Amendment and be a more responsible gun owner. I'm Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.
Sugar, sugar, do 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 do. Ah, honey, honey, do 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 do. Get you some America. You can have my 30. Freedom.